Kiddos, here's the review. Here's how the test is going to roll. You're going to have 25 matching answers. There's a lot on the test. That's 75 points of the 135 will be the matching. So make sure you know these names we're going to go over. I wanted to give you a quick hint here. I wanted to ask you a question. When you get these matching tests, which route do you go? Do you look at the name and then go through the answers, or do you go to the first answer and go to the names? How many go to the name and then look at all the answers? Okay, how many go to the answers and then look at all the names? That actually is the best way to go, because you're not having to decipher as much information. You look at the name and go through all the answers, you're reading a lot more content. If you go to the answer and read that, and then try to figure out who that is, that's actually easier. So it's up to you to try however you would wish, but that's the way I would do it if I was you. So here we go. We'll start over here with Zoe. I want you to tell me the area where the Corps of Discovery stayed during the first winter of the expedition. The area where the Corps of Discovery stayed during the first winter. Where did they stay their first winter is the question. Where did they spend their first winter?
It was in those villages, the
Yeah.
Mandan villages.
Very good. Mandan Villages is correct. Okay. Danny, who was the Teton Sioux chief who allowed the Corps of Discovery to pass through their lands early in the expedition? Who was the Teton Sioux chief who allowed the Corps of Discovery to pass through their lands early in the expedition? No, Black someone, but not Black Cap. It's an animal. You're getting
Buffalo.
Black Buffalo. Very good. Black Buffalo was the Teton Sioux chief who allowed the Corps of Discovery to pass through their lands early in the expedition. Tatum, who was the sergeant who died on the expedition in August of 1804, the only casualty of the Corps of Discovery? The sergeant who died on the expedition in August of 1804 turns out to be the only casualty of the Corps of Discovery. Dies of a burst appendix. Charles Floyd Jr. Very good. Charles Floyd Jr. was the sergeant who died on the expedition in August of 1804, the only casualty of the Corps of Discovery. Caleb, what's the imaginary line that separates the flow of the rivers in the United States called?
The Continental Divide.
Very good. The Continental Divide. Again, the Continental Divide, the imaginary line that separates the flow of rivers in the United States. Carter, other than a fellow by the name of Newman, who was the other man that was court-martialed for mutiny and desertion during the early part of the Corps of Discovery? Moses Reed is right. So other than Newman, what's Newman's first name? John Newman. Other than John Newman, a man that was court-martialed for mutiny and desertion during the early part of the Corps of Discovery was Moses Reed. Kaylin, who was the Mandan Indian leader that sold the expedition food and allowed the Corps of Discovery to hunt buffalo with them? Black Cap. Very good. Black Cap was the Mandan Indian leader that sold the expedition food and allowed the Corps of Discovery to hunt buffalo with them. Riley, who was the child born during their first winter in present-day North Dakota prior to departure that spring? What was the name of that child that was born? What's the name of that child? The name of the child born during the first winter in present-day North Dakota prior to the departure of Corps of Discovery. tell you if you would give me an answer.
Isn't it like
Christian name I'm looking for.
Christian?
I bet if you found it, I looked at your ID sheet, I bet you'd find it.
I don't know how to pronounce that. Baptiste. I don't know.
Jean or Jean Baptiste Charbonneau. You could say Pomp, but Pomp won't be on the matching, it'll be Jean Baptiste Charbonneau. Okay? All right, Maddie. Who was the woman who served as an interpreter for the Corps of Discovery? Sacagawea or Sakakawea? Okay. Andy, who was the French-Canadian fur trapper that was hired by Lewis and Clark to be a guide for the Corps of Discovery? French-Canadian fur trapper, that would be Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau's father. Toussaint Charbonneau, very good, Toussaint Charbonneau. Okay, it's a tough one, Daniel, but I know you can get it. What was the part of the equipment that Lewis and Clark took with them on the expedition that helped with digestion issues? Okay, what was the equipment that Lewis and Clark took with them on the expedition that helped with digestion issues? Help with digestion issues. You're getting there. Well, now you're getting cold. What was that piece of equipment called that helped with digestion issues? Up the list, there you go.
The emetic.
Emetic is right. Okay, what was the other one, by the way?
The
Diaphoretic, what did that help with?
sweating.
Sweaty, you were throwing up, so, right? So epitic is what we're looking for. Okay, good. John Mortimer, my main man. Who was William Clark's Negro slave who accompanied, did I say Mark Mortimer? I said Sean. It's only the first time I've done that. I've had all the Mortimers. You gotta give me a break. I've had them all. I've had Sean. I've had Will the Thrill. And now Luke. William Clark's Negro slave who accompanied the Corps of Discovery on their expedition. York. Very good. Okay. All right, Regan. This is my first schmelzer, so I should get that right. Who was the man who was a skilled map maker that was chosen by Meriwether Lewis to assist him in the Corps of Discovery?
William Clark.
Yeah, William Clark. Kate's thinking, well, I wish I'd have got that one. Here you go, Kate. Who was the Secretary of the Treasury in which one vein of the Three Forks of the Missouri River was named after? A wonderful fishery, if you ever get in the Bozeman area. But what was the name of this Secretary of the Treasury? Statue right in front of the Treasury building as we speak, right next to the White House. What was that fellow's name? Albert Gallatin. Yes, yeah, Albert Gallatin. Okay, Izzy, who was the Shoshone chief who discovered he was Sacagawea's brother? Komeowi. But it's not spelled anything like it sounds. So you got to find the one in there that starts with a C, and you're looking at I'm going, whoa. Now, luckily for you, that'll be supplied for you on the matching, right? Okay? Komeowi was the Shoshone chief who discovered he was Sacagawea's brother. Okay, Luke Lamb, not Andrew, right? Okay, not Kyle. I never had the privilege of having Andrew, but I had Kyle. What was the steep and rugged mountain trail that would take the Corps of Discovery to the Columbia River?
Lolo Trail.
Lolo Trail. Very good. Lolo Trail. Again, the Lolo Trail was the steep and rugged mountain trail that would take the Corps of Discovery to the Columbia River. All right, Mr. Wolf. What was the name of the small waterway where the Corps of Discovery killed one of their own horses to avoid starvation? Colt Hill Creek. Very good. Kinsey, my dear. What was the area called where the Corps of Discovery stayed during their second winter near present-day Astoria, Oregon? Fort Clatsop. Very good. Fort Clatsop. Jordy? What was the man's name that was chosen by President Jefferson to lead the Corps of Discovery? Meriwether Lewis. Right back at you, Jordy. What was the name of the water route to the Pacific Ocean that was discovered by the Lewis and Clark expedition that ran from St. Louis to the Pacific Ocean? What was the name of the water route to the Pacific Ocean discovered by the Lewis and Clark expedition that ran from St. Louis to the Pacific Ocean? What was that called? What was the name of that? That's what they set out to do in the first place, was to discover the what? And that, whatever that was the water route to the Pacific from St. Louis to the Pacific. Really? Nobody knows that? Everybody does. Regan?
Is it the Northwest Passage?
Northwest Passage, that's right. Okay, back at you, Jordy. Who was the American diplomat that President Jefferson sent to France to negotiate the purchase of Louisiana? Who was the American diplomat that President Jefferson sent to France to negotiate the purchase of Louisiana? What's that guy's name? Robert R. Livingston. Very good, my dear. Very good. Robert R. Livingston. Okay, Izzy, here we go. Who is the woman that the Marias River was named after by her cousin, Meriwether Lewis? Mariah Wood. Not Rias. Mariah Wood. See, Marias River was Mariah's River. Just didn't put the apostrophe in there, you know what I mean? So, Mariah Wood. Maddie? What was the name of the exact area near the Marias River where Lewis and Clark made the decision on what water route to take to the Missouri River? Decision Point. Very good. Riley, tell me the Indian tribe that supplied the much-needed horses to climb through the tough terrain over the Lolo Trail. What was the Indian tribe that supplied the much-needed horses for the Corps of Discovery, because they were going to need to have those horses to climb that tough terrain over the Lolo Trail? The Shoshone Indians. Very good. Zoe, who was the Secretary of State in which one vein of the three forks of the Missouri River was named after? Later went on to become a president. It's not such, yeah, James Madison. Not a great fishery, good floatery. James Madison. And Andy, which Indian tribe allowed the expedition to cut down 5 trees to make into canoes? What Indian tribe allowed the Corps of Discovery to cut down 5 trees to make those into canoes? We'll later talk about them in their flight to try to get away from white military oppression. Chief Joseph was their leader. Ever heard of Chief Joseph? What was the old Indian tribe that late in the expedition let them cut down these trees so they could make canoes so they could float down the Columbia? Nez Perce. Very good. Very good. Okay, Carter. Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, whom Captain Clark referred to as Pomp, was a Shoshone word meaning Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, whom Captain William Clark referred to as Pomp, was a Shoshone word meaning, I bet you don't know that because you didn't get on the video because I didn't have your video posted. No, what did it mean? Somebody. Go ahead. Firstborn. Okay? Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, whom William Clark referred to as Pomp, was a Shoshone word meaning firstborn. born. Okay, who is the man who accidentally shot Meriwether Lewis in the buttocks while hunting near the mouth of the Yellowstone River during the return trip? Pete Cruzat. Yep, you'll need to be able to spell that correctly. Okay, Tatum, counting on you. In 1806 dollars, how much was Toussaint Charbonneau paid for his services during the Corps discovery? In 1806 dollars. 1806 dollars.
$533.
No.
I had that in my folder.
In here, okay. Caleb? In $1806. In other words, how much did Lewis and Clark give Toussaint Charbonneau for his services? Anybody? Yeah. $450, which Mr. Mortimer would be how much in today's dollars?
I didn't write that down.
Didn't. Did anybody write that down? How much in today's dollars? Nobody in here? Good. $9,300. Yeah, $9,300 in today's bucks. $450 in those days bucks. Jordy, how long in miles was the total Corps of Discovery? How long in miles? How far did they travel in miles? Approximately how far in miles? How far in miles? For the whole trip? Approximately. I didn't give the exact number, I said approximately. The video said approximately also. I'll bet you got it in there. Huh? Atta girl, 8,000, right? So, Mr. Frazier, tell me exactly how much time the Corps discovery took.
It took 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days.
That's exactly right. 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days. Now, you're also going to need to know 5 items of interest that the Corps discovery brought back to them, besides maps and journals, other than maps and journals. Okay? So 5 items. Samples of plants, bones of animals, samples of soil, samples of rocks, furs of animals, those types of things. You know 5 other than maps and journals. And the last things you need to know, you're going to have to list 5 things about Meriwether Lewis as mentioned in the lectures after his return from the Corps discovery, and 5 different things about William Clark as mentioned in the lectures after his return from the Corps discovery. So that and the matching alone is 35 answers times 3. So how much is that?
105.
Out of 135. Okay, so those things are important, so make sure you get those down. Now, I want you to take out your notes, and I'm going to give you a little more information about Clark's return trip. I did a little bit of research. I always try to research a little bit more, and I want to give you a little bit more research. So you don't have to write anything down that you don't want to, none will be on the test. But I did want to give you some information I thought was interesting. So, remember I told you that when did Lewis and Clark split up on the return trip back? What did they get over, then they decided to split up? No.
They got over the
They got over the Lolo Trail and decided they would split up. Well, I'm just going to do a little extra research. Lewis took 9 men with him, okay? And Clark took the remaining 23, including Charbonneau, Pomp, and Sacagawea with him. So Lewis takes 9, Clark takes 23. Well, when Clark gets back to the Three Forks of the Missouri before going to the Yellowstone River, 10 of the 23 men that he had with him decide that they're going to turn north and go back up with Lewis. So Lewis ends up with 19 by the time they reach the mouth of the Yellowstone, and Clark ends up with 13. Okay? So I didn't realize that 10 of them took off and went and joined him, which they did. Well, we know the story, what happened with Lewis and his men. They ran into the Blackfeet Indians and ended up killing a couple of them and skedaddling like crazy to the mouth of the Yellowstone. Well, I found out some interesting things about Clark. Clark had 50 horses with him, besides the 13 people. And they were traveling down the Yellowstone, and they were looking for a good group of cottonwood trees because they wanted to carve 2 canoes and float the rest of the way down the Yellowstone. And they had these horses, and they were on foot, so to speak, and they got to present-day Park City, Montana. I don't know if any of you have been there or know where that's at, but it's about 30 miles west of Billings towards Bozeman. And they stopped at the river at Park City because they saw these nice cottonwood trees. Now, as they got there, they discovered these Indian smoke signals, assuming that maybe these Indians wouldn't be very friendly. But because there was such a large amount of abundant game there, and there were choke cherry trees there, which they really liked to use to make axe handles, and the fact that they were going to stop there and carve 2 cottonwoods into canoes, they stayed for a period of time. Well, while they were there, the Indians didn't attack them, but they stole 24 of their 50 horses. Okay? And at that point, Clark decided, you know, these other horses are a pain, because every time they see a buffalo, they take off. Now, the reason why that was is because where do you think Lewis and Clark got these horses from? Indians. And what did the Indians train them to do? Chase buffalo. So every time one of these horses would see a buffalo, riderless or not, boom, they would take off. And they were getting to be kind of a nuisance, but Clark kind of wanted the horses when he, you know, for the trip. And so what he did is he sent 4 men, including a sergeant by the name